Well, since we're at 10:30, we'll go ahead and pass the reins over to Karen Garrity Folk. I'm lucky enough to have Karen in my community of allies. Her students attend a school in the district that I work at, and she's provided the art teachers in my district tons of relevant professional development. And she's even presenting at our district I Fair, which I'm super excited about. So I will kick it over to Karen Garrity Folk. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you. And I do hope that later this semester we can host an in-person meetup. We're hoping for late April to be able to do that because it is always nice to see museum artwork in person. I did want to mention that before the pandemic, literally like just months before, I was telling everybody about this study that National Art Education Association put out about museum field trips and the impact that a 1-hour field trip can have on kids. And they measured lots of different aspects of learning and reactions that the children had to artwork versus looking at artwork in slides or in the classroom. And so then I found myself in the place of working from home for over a year. And how can I be a museum educator if I don't have a museum? So we get creative, right? So that is the white limestone buildings, the Nerman Museum on the campus of Johnson County Community College. And I worked there for 16 years. The building was under construction when I was hired to start training docents and start getting the tour program up and running. It kind of feels like we're in that similar space now since we are reopened, but the college isn't fully in person. I think it's still like 40% in person and the rest are online classes or hybrid classes. And also we haven't yet welcomed the elementary school field trips back. Usually we have about 500 or 600 elementary kids come through each semester. So we're hoping by the end of the semester that will happen again. In the meantime, I am training more docents. I've got 8 more volunteers who, it just feels like a miracle that anyone wanted to sign up right now to start practicing giving tours and stuff. So by the end of the semester, I'm very fortunate to have a good group of people. So we should be ready. So I, again, took the opportunity to be creative with online teaching. All of a sudden, I had the option of teaching whatever I wanted from the collection, even stuff that was in storage and had never been on view. So that was kind of fun. So this is one of the artworks that we've shown people a printout of it before, but it's never actually been the artwork hung on the wall in the museum. And this is a work by Wendy Red Star, and it's called Medicine Rockchild. It's a photograph. So it is a narrative scene. The artist has photoshopped herself into it. She's wearing a costume that she made. And we show it to people when we are looking at this work in person. This is a jingle dress that the artist made. She's from the Crow Reservation, currently based in Portland. And this is an untitled silver from the series, I'm sorry, Thunder from Up Above. So she's looking at science fiction. You know, the artwork here is isolated when we see it in person, so it's fun to show it how the artist has used it in context in her other work. And also with this piece, we like to show when we're virtual learning, when at all possible, we want to show a detail of the artwork so you can really get a sense of the texture. That's one of the things that you miss from museum learning. And also just the fact that when you are in the museum, you're not allowed to touch anything, but we actually have, you know, acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of tactile learners, and it's not just kids. There's adults all the time who are trying to touch the art. So we have some pass around items, tin jingles or something that you can buy, you can order. Traditionally, they were made from rolled up snuff can lids, but now the jingles are readily accessible and anybody can buy them. So it is one of those things where, again, we're thinking about multi-sensory teaching. How can we do that when we're looking at a screen? There were some occasions where I told people, I want you to have a list of, or this is a list of things I want you to find. Something soft, something scratchy, something with some other kind of texture, and something with a rabbit on it, or some sort of representation of a rabbit. So those are all things that I asked people to find before we showed them an image of our hair and bell sculpture. So they would have something to hold and then something to share when they're sitting there at their computer all day long. So this is another set of artworks by Wendy Redstar, who had these works in our exhibition in 2014. And then we loaned the four, it's 4 separate photographs, part of a series called The Four Seasons. We loaned them to the Nelson Atkins Museum for their Plains Indians Artists of Earth and Sky exhibition that then traveled to the Metropolitan Museum in Kansas City. So these artworks are sometimes shown in person, all 4 of them together. They have been shown separately. There was a gallery that had the winter picture up during the winter months, and then we changed it to the spring picture when it was springtime, and then the summer picture there. And the artist herself has actually used it in different contexts too. Here is the artwork that is on view. You can see it's blown up huge like a mural on display at the MASMocha Museum. And you can see some of her other photograph series there too. So we can really play with time and space when we're teaching remotely and still adhere to some museum practices. So here's a detail of another work. And this is a work that I showed at the first online tour I gave a little over a year ago to Shawnee Mission East High School. And, you know, it's a photography class. So I was trying to think of artworks that use photography or reference photography. And I would love to have a little bit of dialogue with you all if you want to play along, because I don't like to just talk the whole time, if possible. What's unusual about this photograph? Think about the light source, the textures you see. How can we tell this is not a straight photograph?
It almost looks like the teddy bear is taped onto it. The lighting
Yeah.
doesn't match.
Yes, the lighting doesn't match because we have that strong light source coming from the side, and then she kind of, you know, we can imagine it's an overcast sky with snow. And so there isn't a strong light source on the figure.
I also noticed that the texture on the teddy bear seems to be maybe more clear and focused than the texture in the image behind.
Yeah, so those are great observations. I will say that you talked more just now than the high school students did. And I tried to give plenty of wait time, but luckily the teacher, Adam Finkelstein, was very helpful, and he would talk to me. So the students got to listen to me and the teacher talk. Great, so we can tell that this is actually a detail of a huge photograph, but we can tell something about it, that it's layered, it's got collage aspect. You can see the tape, so the artist wasn't trying to hide it. It's not a Photoshop. And let's see. Okay, so I got the next image, shows you a little more of the context for that photograph. So it's just one in a grid of over 100. So so here we can see the other part of the teddy bear, and we can also see that the figure is not the same size as all the other figures. The background isn't the same. This is like a snowy picture, like a winter scene. But then up here we see some fall foliage. And then some of the pictures look like they're interior. So the setting is different, but the artist has unified it by taking that one photograph and cropping it in 2 different sections. Okay, so then next, there's some other details of that photo collage. You can see the work on the right is a postcard. The artist Star Wallowing Bull is the son of the artist Frank Big Bear Jr., who made the larger collage. So this is a postcard from Star Wallowing Bull's exhibition. And you can see that it's got a figure. It's also a collage. It has the colored pencil drawing of what I believe is a bear holding a panda bear in the palm. And then there's the floor that's got kind of the wood grain, and then a potted plant. And you can see one of the details here where that postcard is used as the format. It's the foundation for all the other collage work that Frank Big Bear did on top of it. So that's another unifying technique that artists use to repeat that same postcard all over. So here's another detail, and you can see it's got text on it. We are still here. This happens to be the artwork I chose for our website when I was trying to promote our online learning when we were closed. We are still here. We are still here to help you. This is referencing history. It's referencing American icons and Native perspectives on that shrine of democracy is what the Mount Rushmore sculpture is called. We have a lot of different figures from photographs, family members of the artists, also political figures. Here's another detail with the Liberty Enlightening the Universe, Statue of Liberty. You can see that there are also cultural items that are layered on top with that, that pelt there in the necklace with the bear claws. And there's the moon and the earth and just some of those things that you might not expect in a narrative image, because it really takes you out of the context of our country, a little more global. So here's the whole image. So you can see that there's the teddy bear that we first looked at. This is an image that you see from across the gallery, and there's so much going on. You want to come and look closer. But when you're in person, there's no way to not see the whole thing first, right? So first you see the whole thing, and then you hone in on some of the details. And I notice something different every time I look at this. There's so much going on. But you can see how our focus looking first at the detail, and then with the broader structure and the composition, it kind of changed the way we looked at it and the way we saw it. Okay, so this is Frank Big Bear Jr. We are still here. Photo collage currently on view in the museum. And he's from Minneapolis area. And he actually did an even bigger collage after this one was made. And let's see, my slide doesn't want to advance. There we go. So there is the Walker Art Museum, Walker Art Center had this work called Multiverse from 2016. And you can see it's even bigger, and it's got some of the similar imagery, a lot of imagery from art history textbooks that the artist has put together. And there's a picture of the artist. So I like to show pictures of the artist in person too. Sometimes we'll print off pictures and pass them around in plastic sheet protectors. Okay, so we kind of looked at the artwork from storage, then we looked at the detail, and then the whole picture. And with this, I wanted to show how we might show artworks that are sourced from other images. So this is an example that I showed just because with the high school students, I didn't know like how many of them are familiar with Rolling Stone magazine. So I showed a picture. This is Rolling Stone magazine. And this is the source image of Greta Thunberg. And then here we can see that Shepard Fairey has altered the image, stylized it a little bit, done some graphic design to change it. And then, and that's, you know, very common with pop art to take something from the popular media and then alter it into your own creation. And then we have, there's also Greta. I had to throw this one in. This is an artwork that we don't own, but we own the one on the, I'm sorry, I'm all backwards. We own the more abstract figure. Is it on the left or the right? I'm a little backwards. So we own the abstract figure. It's made up of tiny stars, and the artist Christian Schumann also made this portrait of Greta using tiny stars, and he called it Death Stare. It was from 2019. And we showed this image to people in person because looking at our figure, it's so abstract, it's alien-like. We want to show that the artist also does portraits using stars that is more photorealistic. And with this one too, you know, you see it from afar, and we hope that people get up close enough not to touch the artwork, but to get a sense for how the artist made it. And then here's a detail that I like to show. One of the questions that we might ask in person is, Do you think the artist used a stencil to paint the stars or freehand? So I'm curious what you all think with your sharp art teacher eyes. So anyone think it was freehand versus stencil?
I feel like it's freehand because it's not like totally perfect.
That's what I'm guessing too. I don't know for sure, but once I started looking at like even the eyeballs, if you look at the star pupils, they're not the same as each other. There's a little bit of variation to fill the space. So I know some of our new docent group was talking about this the other day, and many of them were like, there's no way the artist could freehand that, but take some time. I bet you can make a ton of little stars that look very star-like, but they're not exactly the same. So sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I don't know the answer of how the artist made it, and we just have to use our observations. Okay, so the Christian Schumann work is called Schrödinger's Morceau, and that's another one where we don't know exactly what that means. If you just Google Schrödinger, you come up with the Nobel Prize winning physicist. And also Marceau could be referencing Marcel Marceau, the French mime. So we're kind of guessing that that's what the title means, but nobody has interviewed the artist yet. It's a newer piece to find out for sure why he titled it that. But it's better than untitled. Let's just say that. It gives us something to go off of. Okay, so next, this is the Rolling Stone. So it's the cover of the Rolling Stone, but it's in beadwork. And some of this isn't making as much sense as I thought it would when I was planning. But I showed this image to the high school students. They're in their photography class, again, because this is a type of beadwork that is called pictorial. It can be based on a photograph, photorealistic, but it's beads. So it's broken up into tiny pixels, really. So this title up here translates to Stone That Rolls. And it's a work by Jackie Larson Bread, and she's based out of Montana. And Turtle is the name of this figure that she's depicted in her version of the Rolling Stone. And it's beaded parfleche on a rawhide laptop bag. So there's the historical photograph she was looking at. This is a postcard from Glacier National Park. And just recently we stumbled across this image because it's always nice to show people when they're looking at it. This is the photograph she was using. She had to use her imagination with the colors, right? So it's a black and white photo. And then there's an image of the back of the bag that you can't see because the way it's put on display, it's resting on a plexiglass, so you can't see the back of it. We like to show people, here's a picture of the back. So I always like to think about that. How do you understand the artwork as a three-dimensional object if you can't see all sides, if you can't see it in person? Okay, so this part is painted and beaded. Okay, so now's the time where we're going to do some drawing. I did really get inspiration, so I can't take credit for this. I got inspiration from our college student advisory group who was meeting in September of 2020. And, just talking about how can we make art when we're online? How can we get people excited about coming to see the works in person? How can we just get creative while we're still like doing museum teaching? So it's not just a slideshow. I mean, totally, we could do art history lectures, but those aren't really fun to give or to watch. So we want to make it more involved and more hands-on. So we came up with the Sketch Fun, and I've done this with several middle school groups, some arts professionals, as well as my son's 5th grade class. They let me experiment last fall with the 5th graders, and they had fun with it too. And I was able to give them all a stack of the museum's sketchbooks that we had made for a promotional event. So they had the sketchbooks and the museum's color pencils as kind of swag to enjoy while they were making their art. So again, we're looking at the detail first. We're making our own interpretation. It's basically going to be a still life. So that's the only clue I want to give you before we start looking at the art. Okay, and I also made sure that I'm choosing some different artworks. So just in case any of you saw the presentation I gave a year ago in February, I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit. Okay, so this is our first artwork, and that's basically all I'm going to give you right now. So go ahead and start sketching. And remember, I mentioned it's going to be a still life, so there's going to be a couple different objects that you can put together. So I'm
Okay, so
sketching
Karen,
too.
Am
Yes.
I supposed to be sketching what I think the rest of the image looks like? Like, am I trying to make a guess
You
here?
can, or you can take that lemon, because it's a lemon. It kind of looks like an eyeball. You can make it an eyeball if you want. So I think I'm going to multiply it. So I'm going to have one lemon and then another lemon behind it. So I hope everyone can see it okay. This is the first time I've used this artwork. And I don't know about you, but I can't help but add some shading to my lemon because it's very much a flat color. And I just want to add some shading and have fun with it. I'm going to add a third lemon. I'm going crazy. So now I got a pile of lemons. It was kind of fun to see the fifth graders still lifes when they were done, because most of them did something completely different than what I did. So that was kind of fun too. It's just close looking is what it boils down to. So close looking is something we like to do in person also. All right, so I'm hoping that you are getting curious about what the artwork looks like. We've got a little bit of a clue that there's an outline. We kind of use our imaginations to complete it. All right, so just about one more minute with this lemon, and then I will show you the whole thing. All right, so I know we didn't spend a ton of time on this, but I want to show you real quick what I did, because it's just so lonely online teaching. Okay, so this is what I did. Can you kind of see that? Ooh, it's blurry. Come on, focus. It's focusing on my hand and not my drawing. Here we go. Is it coming in clear yet? Here we go. I'm gonna hold this still for a second. So you can see I drew the lemon outline, but then I shaded it a little bit. There we go. And then I multiplied the lemon. I had a little bit of the outline. But it's totally okay if yours looks different. Okay, so here is the whole picture. You can see I gave you the small lemon down there to draw. This one has the grain outline. So there's multiple lemons, and the artist Holly Coulisse is based in Georgia and New York, but originally from Canada. And this is her abstracted still life called Vases and Citrus above from 2020. And it's 50 by 60, so it's a pretty good size painting. Currently on view in our first floor show. Okay, so I'm wondering if anybody drew other fruit. Have you imagined other fruit with the lemons, or did you just stick with lemons?
I stuck with lemons because I heard you say you were going to do a bunch of lemons, and I assumed you already knew what the image was. So I did lemons in a bowl.
Oh, so you added a bowl. I like that. Yeah, so you have a different point of view. Like imagine the artist is maybe looking from above, because I don't really see anything that looks like a vase, but maybe if you're looking at a vase from above and you just see the opening, it could be a circle. It's abstract, so it's whatever you want it to be. All right, so our next one, it's a little bit blurry. It's a pastel drawing that I made really, really big to show you this detail. I'm trying to look at the chat too. Kissing lemons, very nice. Okay, so this is a blue flower. Have at it. And you can draw multiple blue flowers if you like. It's just an inspiration. It's kind of like a black-eyed Susan or a daisy. I found when I was watching lots of webinars and listening to videos online, I sketched a lot of flowers, and some of them were like mandala flowers just going around and around. And I found it soothing. And I think it's because once you start with a pattern, you know what's happening next. So that was kind of my relaxation technique, I guess. Trying to stay attentive to all the online learning I was doing. And this one we can kind of see more foliage in the background. So that is a hint.
I totally didn't notice that until you said that, Karen.
Yeah.
My drawing is just dumb host.
So I'm drawing too, and it's kind of fun. I know what the artwork looks like, but I'm trying to just focus in on the detail. It's hard to unknow things. So the last one we looked at was simplify, just the outline, the flat color. And then this one we can tell there's a little more shading and a little more of a natural perspective, with some of the flower petals seeming closer than others. But I think I'm going to draw another one behind this because I really love layering with still life. And I haven't yet created a vessel for mine. So I liked your bowl, Lindsay. I'm not sure if this is going to fit in a bowl. So I'm drawing along just to kind of help gauge the time, because I can't, that's the thing, you can't tell. You can't tell what if people are still drawing or if they look like they're ready to move on to the next one. You all know it's very hard to teach making online and feel connected with the other people in the room.
I was just thinking the people who have their cameras on, I can tell that they're working, and how like in remote times, like the students never had their camera on, and it would have been so nice to just see heads down and pencils moving.
At least they're working on something, whether they're on task. That's another story. Okay, so I will show you the bigger image. Are you ready? Are you ready? Here we go. Did anyone draw something that looked like this? It's incredibly detailed. And you can see the title of it is Pride Blooms Ditch Flowers from the Unique Tapestries, also 2020 pastel and paper. So this is 5 feet. It's a really big piece of paper, a lot of pastel details. We have kind of a water source way down at the bottom. And then all these flowers that probably wouldn't grow like this right next to each other if you just saw a grouping of wildflowers. But Zachary Logan is a Canadian artist, and he made this one early in the pandemic. And of course, I recognize the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet flowers. It took me longer to see that there's a brown flower over here, like a poppy. I don't know if you can see my cursor. And then there is a black flower over here. So really dark, kind of blends in with the black background. So we have the spectrum of colors, black and brown, and then we have a pink butterfly and a blue moth. And so those are also symbolic. So the title Pride Blooms, he's referencing LGBTQ pride and specifically looking at nightlife and the nightlife and socialization that went away when quarantine happened. And he's also referencing the newer version of the pride flag that has pink and blue for trans and black and brown. So I would possibly on a tour show a picture of that pride flag that has the pink and blue and the black and brown along with the rainbow colors. So this work definitely belongs to the history of still life painting. However, there is no vase. It's not inside, it's outside. So it gives that whole different connotation of being outside, like a landscape. And then it has the moon there, really dark background. And he's referencing tapestries too. Okay, so this is a great one to come see in person with all the details. On view for one more month in our first floor show. Okay, so here's another detail of a flower, but it's very differently rendered than the last one. It's more stylized. And I'll give you a minute to draw it. Draw your interpretation of this flower. And I've tried to mix it up. So some of the works are more geometric. Some of them are more lifelike, just because, you know, again, I've been working with people who aren't necessarily all art students. I didn't want to scare them. I was like, come on, everyone can draw an oval, right? It doesn't have to be a perfect oval, but just do your best. It's your interpretation of it. I don't know if you can hear my cat yowling because she really wants to come back in the office. This is her spot, and I'm just in her way. And just in case you're wondering about how much space you have to work with, I'm only going to show one more artwork. So if you don't have any more room in your still life, you can start a new page. It's okay. So this is it's a process for looking. It's not necessarily a finished product that we're trying to get here. And I don't think my detail is high res enough, but does anyone want to guess what materials this is made out of? What kind of media this artwork is?
Is it ceramic?
It
I was
is
gonna say
ceramic.
Yeah, glaze on ceramic.
Yep. So it's earthenware. Very good, very good.
Karen, I'm wondering when you asked the students that, did any of them guess it right?
Well, we had just looked at a ceramic piece. There was a piece that I showed that was Asher Akram's plate called Gaia, and it has a 10-pointed star on it. And so, after showing that, and I think I also started with a ceramic piece that was Linsmeiser Bowers with the orange painted on it. And so they were like, ceramic, because I just gave them 2 ceramics. You know how that goes sometimes. People catch on, there's a theme. All right, so I'm just about done with this one. So I went ahead and made 2 of the brown and orange flowers. I actually skipped the little pink one. So I might need to go back and add that one in. Okay, so it is ceramic, so this won't be a huge surprise, but let's see. Oh, we've got a cat who's trying to communicate with my cat. Okay, thank you. Ooh, I love that. You went all over with that motif. All right, so this is a pot called Traditional Acoma Water Oya with polychrome parrot and floral motif. I'm sorry if that's hard to read. I tried white text and then that was hard to read too. But it's Acoma Pueblo Traditional Water Oya. And so this is how it's on display, that a lot of people don't even see the flowers because they're looking at that parrot and looking at the, the bird, the face, and then that kind of rainbow arc that's over it. So it's got the neutral colors, earth tones based on natural pigments. And Shiateza White Dove has another pot right next to it that has a really interesting green color that's less common with the green minerals that she used. So yeah, again, this shows artists from the Southwest looking at different traditional ways of showing flowers and geometric interpretations of the desert flowers that maybe she's seen in real life. So also, when I'm teaching online, I try to put the dimensions of the artwork too, so you can kind of imagine. This is a big pot. It's 14 inches in its widest area, hand coiled, hand built, and traditionally fired. And if I really wanted to bore you, I could show you some travel pictures because I got to travel to the Acoma Pueblo pre-pandemic in 19 with a group of faculty. And that was a really wonderful experience to see where our art comes from, because a lot of the artwork we have from the Southwest Pueblo cultures, it was all very abstract to me about how separate they are. And then, of course, learning about the Pueblo Revolt was something that I never learned about in school. So it was really kind of great to learn about the history of the area a little more, and sometimes referred to as the first American Revolution with the conflicts there, the Pueblos trying to unite. And parrots, I remember okay, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep yapping. Parrots are not native to Southwest United States. And that was the first thing I thought when I looked at this. I thought it was some sort of desert bird maybe, but the parrot was a trade item. So lots of networks of trade happening before European colonizers came over from Mesoamerica and Central America. So parrots, and they're still discovering all sorts of things from Chaco Canyon, and it's kind of an amazing part of our history that that people are still just starting to learn about. Okay, so here is a detail of a beaded artwork. And I think I'm going to make my bird super tiny because my flowers and lemons are kind of big. So I'm going to do some super tiny birds. So this one's kind of fun to sketch. I'm finding myself doing a lot of cross hatching just to kind of capture that texture of the little tiny beads. And I also kind of threw this one in with our 5th graders because we had just changed our mascot. And we were the Rushton Indians in Shawnee Mission, and actually the Little Indians in reference to Shawnee Mission North. And we're now the Red-tailed Hawks. So I was like, you can make yours a red-tailed hawk. I did want to mention that we use sketching on museum tours with kids as well as adults sometimes. And it's usually the case where we're not showing each other our sketches. Like we've used it with our healthcare tours, and we're just trying to get them to look at, usually it's a sculpture, and they're all sitting in a circle or a semicircle around the sculpture. They're making some notes. We let them use words too, but kind of describing what they're looking at. And it gives them a chance to think about how what I see is not the same as what you see when we're looking at a 3-dimensional piece, and I'm on this side, you're on that side, that person's looking at it straight on. So trying to get people to realize that, you know, perspective is very important. With our medical students, it's like, you got to speak up if you notice something that nobody else is noticing, because it could actually save someone's life. I've had some experiences with other museum educators doing sketching, and you know, even looking at something as abstract and chaotic as a like a painting by de Kooning, which you might think is a really hard thing to sketch, but the educator would say something like, I want you to sketch everything that you see that's red, or some other way of like categorizing, so you're not completely overwhelmed by all the different lines and everything going on there. That was at the Art Institute of Chicago that we did that. And another trick was to have people divide their paper into fourths. So like folding it hamburger style and then hot dog style. So you have quarters, and then saying, just sketch the things that you see in the top left quarter and ignore everything else. And then talk about what you noticed in that quarter. So it's just a way of like visually organizing your observations. Okay, so I hope nobody's drawing every single bead, because that probably would be very stressful and take a long time. So I'm going to move on. Whoops, I got to color it weak first. All right, so I want to show you the whole thing. So this bird is one of several birds that are on Tom Hawkes's beaded cradle. And it's not a cradle board because there's no board. It's just the beaded cradle. And Tom Hawkes is an artist who was born in Puerto Rico, and his family is Lakota, so from the plains areas of the United States. And he is a psychiatrist as well as an artist who works in beadwork and all sorts of different formats. And his work he called the economic conundrum because he's referencing the recession from the aughts, and how the birds kind of represent a frenzy of activity and people getting lost and shut out of financial situations. So you can see there's lots of different birds, different patterns. That just happened to be the one I chose for our Rushton Red. And Tom has a work right next to this on view at the museum, and I didn't grab a picture, but it's a beaded doll. So another Lakota traditional form, but it's in an apothecary jar. So a glass apothecary jar referencing his experience as a psychiatrist. So just to kind of wrap up, I do often show a picture of the artist when we're talking about their work. It helps contextualize the fact that this is made by a living person. Some of the times the artists come out and speak in person, so that's kind of fun too. So up at the top we have Wendy Red Star, and then Frank Big Bear Jr. and Christian Schumann and Jackie Larson Bread. And then when we started sketching, we were looking at the still life by Holly Kules and Zachary Logan. Shayateza White Dove did the pot with the parrot and the flowers, and then Tom Hawkes is there. Okay, so I would love to stop sharing my screen and have you all share what you made. And I'll turn off my filter and that might help. You can just see my messy background, my messy office. If I can turn it off. There we go. None. Okay. So here's what I ended up making. You can see I really don't have a sense of gravity here. It could go either way. So I didn't do a ground line, and I love it. I love all the differences. Ooh, and Lindsay, you even got in that parrot. I didn't think I was showing it long enough for anyone to draw it. Nice. So I love learning about art. I love making art. And anytime I think making art, this is preaching to the choir. When I talk to people who aren't art teachers, I tell them how making art helps us look at the world more clearly. You see things, you notice details. I call it my superpowers, my art vision, ever since high school. I love that Katie's asking people to share their sketches online and tag. When people start to look at shadows and proportions and just relationships with space, you just see more clearly. It's your art vision, it's your superpower. And I think it's one of those things that I don't know that really people can learn how to draw in a 1-hour museum tour. It's not the same as taking a semester-long class. But just like stopping to think for a minute about looking more closely at things, noticing those details, it brings things to life. So I'm hoping that with any online tours that we do, that people will get a chance to come see things in person, and they'll remember some of these details that they studied, and they'll say, oh yeah, I remember that, because I drew it. And it's a way to record your thoughts and to kind of make something physical as your memory. It's the body memory, the muscle memory, right? So hopefully this was helpful, and I'm really looking forward to the other sessions. Thank you for playing along with me. Also, we hope that this could be a helpful tool if we have a group coming on a field trip, that we meet with them ahead of time or afterwards. So I don't think the remote options were a total waste or just something we did because we were closed. I think it could be a learning tool that we continue to explore. So thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I always learn something from others, and I really appreciate your time.
I love that. Fabulous session, Karen. If you guys want to drop some love in there for Karen. I love, because I feel like I'm educated about art and I guess wrong on every single one of those. So I think it would be really fun to see how kids kind of take that in their own direction. So thanks so much for that.